But I'm going to make a quick video here on 10C checkpoint when we have to solve these quadratics. Now your goal here is to find x. So you want to factor. You want to use the ZPP at least twice, the zero product property, and that's when it's in this form. Do not multiply this through and make it look like this. Our goal is to actually go backwards and factor it so it looks like this. So then we can use the zero product property, which I'll write out. So I have like x minus 2, that must be 0. This stuff is 0, or that stuff's 0. Or 3x plus 4 is 0. You don't have to show this work. You can just do this in your head and just write x is positive 2, or our shortcut that we've been using for a long time now, divide this 4 by the 3. So negative 4/3, and the opposite sign. That's in there. All right, so there's the first one. So my thought is, well, I need to use ZPP twice. Let's try it right away. These are small numbers. We try to factor this. Two things that multiply to give me 3 have to be 3 and 1, but they need to add or subtract to give me 1. Now when I do this, I can't get a 1 out of that. I can only get a 2 or a 4. So I'm not going to be able to factor this one. So you're forced to use the quadratic formula or completing the square. I suggest quadratic formula, especially because that number there is odd. So I'd rather avoid the decimals. But you're allowed to do that. Go ahead. So I'll use quadratic formula. So the opposite, so A is 1, B is negative 1, and C is negative 3. And I'll write out the formula. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4. I'm going to go plus negative 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 3. All over 2 times A, which is 1, like that. I suggest filling this part in here. That's a 13, so 12 plus 1 is 13. So 1 plus or minus the square root of 13, all over 2. And then just simply type in your calculator. 1 plus the square root of 13, hit equals, and divide by 2. And we'll get 2.3-ish. And 1 minus the square root of 13 equals, divide by 2, and that's negative 1.3-ish. All right. I would prefer you not to get the square root of 13, get the decimal version of that, and round it, and then do 1 plus this, and divide by this. That's rounded. Round at the very end, not in the middle of the problem. All right, let's get rid of these here. And I'll move these up. Just get rid of that. Excuse me. All right. One of these I have to use quadratic or factor for, so I can use the zero product property. So let's go ahead and try this one. I don't like to do the factoring with a negative in front of the x squared. So because it's an equation, I can simply divide everything by negative 1, like this, or multiply by negative 1, or I could just factor out the negative 1. So I'm going to just basically change all the signs. So 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 is 0. And then try to factor it like this. Now you can go through the whole box and x thing. And maybe I'll do that. But if it's just quicker, because this is prime, this is prime. So you're forced to have a 3 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1. You don't have any other choice. And then just see if this, and that's supposed to be a 1x, if this is a 1x and this is a 3x, does that add or subtract to give me the 2? And yes, it does. It's a negative 2, so I need the 3 to be negative. In other words, if I put the negative over here, and I multiply these two together, I get the negative 3 right here. So when I add those, that's where my negative 2 is. So there's my factoring right away. And then because of that, x then would be negative 1/3 or positive 1. It's the opposite of this. And then wherever a guy has the x, put that on the bottom of the other number. Switch the sign. Okay. Now I'll quickly run through the box and x thing if you just want a quick review on that. So back up to this original part here. 3x squared goes there. Minus 1, negative 3x squared. Negative 2x in the bottom. Two things that multiply to give me 3, 3 and 1. I need to get the negative 2, so I got the negative 3. But this whole thought process right here is what I was doing up here. So that's why I feel like this is a waste of time to go through this whole process. So, I mean, especially when the numbers are prime or the coefficient of x squared is just 1. All right, so put the negative 3x here and the 1x. Nothing comes out of here, so just put a 1 here. I'll put a negative 1 there. I will put a 3 here, 3x, and a 1x. So I get my x minus 1 here, my 3x plus 1 here that I just had up there. So that's why I think this just takes a little longer to do it that way. But it still works. If you're comfortable with that, go ahead. And then the last one, you need to put this all equal to 0. My 3x squared is positive. I'm going to leave it on the right side. So I'm just going to put this stuff over there. So my 3x squared plus my 8x, the standard form here, plus 5, and then equals 0. And then I'm going to use, now I can use quadratic formula because I already used my 0 product property twice. I believe this is factorable, so you could go through this whole box the next thing. But just for time's sake, I'm just going to run through. A is 3, B is 8, C is 5, so the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A, so 6. And this is 12 times 5, that's 0. Because, oh no, that's 60, so 64 minus 60 is 4. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 4 all over 6, which is negative 8 plus or minus 2 over 6. I know I'm flying through this, but I want to finish up quick. So I have negative 6 over 6, or negative 10 over 6. That's negative 1, or negative 5 thirds. And that's good. And because this comes out so nicer, we would have been able to factor this. But either way. All right, good luck.